K9 interrupts school ceremony and won't leave child side. What police discover moments later freezes everyone. The muted thud of paws against concrete echoed through Terminal F of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Max's muscular frame moved with practiced precision between the rows of abandoned luggage, his nose twitching at each new scent. Sarah Collins watched her partner work, noting the subtle changes in his posture that spoke volumes to her trained eye. 6 years of partnership had taught her to read every flick of his ears, every slight tension in his shoulders. When Max suddenly froze, head low and tail rigid, Sarah's hand instinctively moved to her radio. The Belgian Malinois' attention was fixed on a pile of innocent-looking stuffed bears, his body absolutely still, except for the rapid rise and fall of his chest. "We've got something," Sarah reported, her voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline. Terminal F, Section 12, K9 showing positive indication on merchandise shipment. The bears yielded their secrets under the scrutiny of the drug enforcement team. $2 million worth of synthetic opioids, carefully stitched into the plush toy's stuffing. It was the kind of bust that would make headlines, but Sarah's satisfaction was cut short by an urgent call from dispatch. K9 Unit 247, please respond. We need immediate assistance at Cedar Grove Elementary. Sarah frowned, catching the tension in the dispatcher's voice. 247 responding. Nature of the situation. Security detail requested for their annual awards ceremony. Previous unit called in sick. High priority attendance. Multiple VIPs present. Something about the call felt off. School security details weren't typically classified as urgent, and Max seemed to sense her unease. His ears pricked forward as he listened to the exchange, abandoning his post-search routine. 20 minutes later, Sarah guided their unmarked police SUV into Cedar Grove Elementary's parking lot. The school stood 3 stories tall, its red brick facade brightened by children's artwork in the windows. But Max's behavior had shifted dramatically during the drive. Usually calm and focused after a successful bust, he now paced restlessly in his compartment, whining softly. "What is it, buddy?" Sarah murmured, studying her partner's reflection in the rearview mirror. In 6 years, she'd learned to trust his instincts as much as her own training. Max had an uncanny ability to sense trouble before it manifested, a gift that had saved their lives more than once. The school's auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and parents. Sarah positioned herself near the main entrance, Max at perfect heel beside her. Vice Principal Thomas Mitchell approached them, his tailored suit and practiced smile marking him as one of the VIPs mentioned in the call. "Officer Collins, thank you for coming on such short notice," Mitchell said, extending his hand. "We have several school board members and local officials attending today." Sarah shook his hand, noting the slight clamminess of his palm. "Happy to help, sir. We'll maintain a low profile during the ceremony." As Mitchell walked away, Max's ears twitched forward, his attention fixing on the man's retreating form with unusual intensity. Sarah filed away the reaction, years of experience having taught her that Max's apparent distractions often proved significant later. The ceremony proceeded smoothly through the first round of awards. Sarah scanned the crowd methodically, noting exits, potential trouble spots, and the positioning of other staff members. Everything seemed normal until Amanda Torres's name was called. The 11-year-old girl made her way to the stage, her Navy school uniform neat but slightly too large for her small frame. As she passed their position, Max broke protocol for the first time in his career. Without warning or command, he moved from Sarah's side, padding silently across the floor to position himself next to Amanda. Sarah's hand immediately went to her radio, but she hesitated. This wasn't aggression. Max's posture remained relaxed, his tail low but not threatening. He simply stood there, pressing gently against Amanda's leg as she accepted her Academic Excellence Award. The girl's reaction made Sarah's cop instincts fire on all cylinders. Instead of showing fear at the large police dog's approach, Amanda's shoulders lost some of their tension. Her small hand dropped to rest on Max's head, and for a moment Sarah caught a glimpse of tears in the child's eyes. Vice Principal Mitchell's reaction was equally telling. His professional smile slipped for just a second, replaced by something that made Sarah's stomach tighten. She'd seen that look before, on suspects who suddenly realized they were about to be discovered. "Max, come," Sarah commanded, keeping her voice level. Her partner ignored her completely, another first. He remained stationed beside Amanda, his eyes now fixed on Mitchell with unmistakable intent. The ceremony continued, but Sarah's mind was racing. She catalogued every detail. Amanda's careful movements, the way she flinched when Mitchell approached to shake her hand, the subtle tremor in her fingers as she clutched her award certificate. Max's behavior had just transformed a routine security detail into something else entirely. As the audience began to disperse, Sarah noticed Amanda lingering behind, reluctant to leave Max's protective presence. The girl's mother approached, confusion evident on her face. "Is everything okay?" Mrs. Torres asked, looking between her daughter and the police dog. Sarah made a quick decision. "Ma'am, would you mind if I asked Amanda a few questions about her award? We like to highlight student achievements in our community outreach program." The look of relief that flashed across Amanda's face confirmed Sarah's suspicions. Something was very wrong at Cedar Grove Elementary, and somehow Max had sensed it the moment they arrived. As Sarah watched Mitchell disappear through the staff entrance, she felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Her partner had just issued a warning as clear as any radio call for backup. Now she had to figure out exactly what Max had detected, before it was too late for Amanda, and who knew how many other children. The real ceremony today hadn't been about academic awards. It had been a call to truth, delivered through the unfailing instincts of a Belgian Malinois who'd never once been wrong about a threat. Sarah just hoped they could uncover that truth before someone decided to silence it forever. Sarah's fingers hovered over her keyboard, the glow of the computer screen casting shadows across her office. 3 days had passed since the ceremony at Cedar Grove Elementary, and she couldn't shake the image of Amanda Torres's face when Max had approached her. The database cursor blinked accusingly as she entered another search query. Max lay alert at her feet, his eyes tracking every movement in the precinct's K9 office. It was well past midnight, but Sarah had waited until the night shift began before diving into the school district's records. Too many questions during regular hours might raise unwanted attention. "Transfer records for the past 5 years, she muttered, scanning the data. "Come on, give me something." The screen populated with files, but what caught her attention were the gaps. Dozens of student transfers from Cedar Grove Elementary, all processed under similar circumstances. The pattern was too neat, too organized. Sarah had seen enough sanitized records to recognize when someone had carefully cleaned up their track. A soft whine from Max drew her attention. Captain Rivera stood in the doorway, his expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Little late for background checks, Collins," he said, stepping into the office. "Something you want to tell me about Cedar Grove?" Sarah hesitated. Rivera had been her supervisor since she'd joined the K9 unit, and his instincts were as sharp as Max's. But if her suspicions were wrong, raising an alarm could destroy careers, including her own. "Just being thorough, sir," she replied, minimizing the database window. Max showed some unusual behavior during the security detail. "Probably nothing, but your partner's never wrong," Rivera finished, studying the Belgian Malinois. "What kind of unusual behavior?" Sarah described the scene with Amanda Torres, watching Rivera's face carefully. 20 years on the force had given him an excellent poker face, but she caught the slight tightening around his eyes. "Sir?" she prompted. Rivera closed the office door. 2 years ago, we received an anonymous tip about Cedar Grove. Allegations of misconduct, but nothing concrete. The investigation stalled when the tipster disappeared and the school board's lawyer got involved. Sarah's pulse quickened. "Which lawyer?" "James Harrison," Rivera said, the name falling like a stone between them. "The same one who's now a juvenile court judge." Max's ears pricked forward at the change in Sarah's breathing. The pieces were starting to form a picture she didn't want to see. A judge with connections to the school board, sanitized transfer records, and a terrified 11-year-old girl. "I need to go back to that school," Sarah said, already reaching for her jacket. Rivera nodded. "Tomorrow morning, routine K-9 drug sweep. Every classroom, every office, including the administrative wing." The school's halls were eerily quiet the next morning as Sarah and Max moved methodically through their sweep. Vice Principal Mitchell's smile seemed forced when he greeted them, his eyes following Max's every move. "Routine inspection," Sarah explained, noting how Mitchell's hand trembled slightly as he unlocked his office. "Won't take long." Max worked the room with practiced efficiency, but his behavior shifted when they reached a locked filing cabinet. The change was subtle, something only Sarah would notice, but his tail position and ear set told her volumes. "Sir," she said, turning to Mitchell, "I'll need to see inside this cabinet." "That's private student information," Mitchell protested. "You'd need a warrant." "Not for a K-9 indication," Sarah cut in smoothly. "Max has given a positive alert. We can do this quietly now, or I can call it in and have a full team here in 20 minutes. Mitchell's facade cracked. For just a moment, Sarah saw raw fear in his eyes before he composed himself. Of course, just trying to protect student privacy. His fingers fumbled with the keys. The cabinet contained exactly what Sarah expected. Immaculate files, perfectly organized. Too perfect. But in the back of the bottom drawer, Max's nose led them to a false panel. Behind it lay a USB drive and a small notebook with dates, initials, and amounts. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Rivera. "Harrison just pulled Amanda Torres's file from the courthouse, moving fast." The message confirmed Sarah's worst fears. They weren't just dealing with isolated incidents. This was systematic, organized, and protected by people with power. Her hand dropped to Max's head, drawing strength from his solid presence. "Good boy," she whispered, and felt him lean against her leg in response. They'd found their first piece of concrete evidence, but Sarah knew from experience that this was when cases became truly dangerous. People with something to lose often turned desperate. A shadow moved in the hallway, Amanda Torres, waiting for her morning counseling session. The girl's eyes met Sarah's through the office window, and in that moment, Sarah made her decision. Protocol and procedure could wait. A child was in danger. She slipped the USB drive into her pocket just as Mitchell returned with the school principal. Max positioned himself between Sarah and the administrators, his posture relaxed, but ready. 6 years of partnership had taught them both when a situation was about to turn. "Gentlemen," Sarah said, closing the filing cabinet, "I think we need to have a conversation about student transfers." The principal's face remained neutral, but Mitchell's right hand twitched toward his pocket. Max's growl was almost subsonic, felt more than heard, but its meaning was clear. Whatever Mitchell had been reaching for stayed where it was. Sarah thought of Amanda Torres, of all the missing files, of a judge pulling records in a panic. She thought of Max's certainty during the ceremony, his unfailing instinct for truth. They were standing on the edge of something dark, but she had backup she could trust absolutely. She met Mitchell's eyes, letting him see her certainty. "This can go 2 ways, she said quietly, "but it's going to go. Your choice how many people get hurt in the process." Behind her, Max shifted his weight, ready for whatever came next. They'd open this door together, and they'd see what lay behind it, no matter how ugly the truth turned out to be. The interview room's harsh fluorescent lights couldn't mask the exhaustion on Amanda Torres's face. Sarah sat across from her, Max's head resting protectively against the girl's knee. The child services worker, Ms. Chen, watched from the corner, her tablet ready to record the statement. But Sarah's mind kept drifting to another interview room, 3 years earlier. Another child, another case that had changed everything. 3 years earlier. "He's too green," Lieutenant Parker had argued. "Collins, your last partner was a veteran. Max has barely finished his certification." Sarah had stood her ground, hand resting on the young Belgian Malinois' back. "Sir, he's ready. His training scores are the highest in the unit's history. Training isn't the street, Parker countered, but Sarah saw the waver in his expression. They were short-staffed, and Max's scores were exceptional. 2 weeks later, they got the call that would define their partnership. 6-year-old Tommy Chen abducted from his front yard. 48 hours missing, no leads, no ransom demands. The kind of case that haunted cops' nightmares. They'd found the first clue in a deserted parking garage. A scrap of Tommy's pajamas that the kidnapper had missed. Sarah had watched Max work the scent, his whole body vibrating with focused intensity. The trail led them through Atlanta's warehouse district, each turn bringing them closer to their target. The warehouse had seemed abandoned, but Max's behavior told a different story. His ears flattened, tail low but rigid, a clear signal that someone was inside. Sarah had called for backup, but when she heard the muffled cry, she knew they couldn't wait. Max had taken down the kidnapper with textbook precision, his training overriding any rookie hesitation. Sarah found Tommy locked in a supply closet, terrified but alive. In the space of 4 minutes, they'd solved a case that had stymied the entire department for 2 days. That night, after the statements and paperwork, Sarah had sat on her living room floor with Max, his head in her lap. "You did good, buddy," she'd whispered. "You did real good." Amanda's voice pulled Sarah back to the present. "He's different with me," the girl said, fingers tangled in Max's fur. "In class, when Mr. Mitchell comes near my desk, he always—" Sarah forced herself to listen without reacting as Amanda described a pattern of special attention from the vice principal. Max remained perfectly still, offering silent support as the girl's story unfolded. "Did you tell anyone?" Ms. Chen asked gently. Amanda's fingers tightened in Max's fur. "I tried. I wrote a letter to Judge Harrison because he visits our school sometimes. But then Mr. Mitchell said he knew the judge personally, and if I caused trouble—" Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Rivera. "Harrison's calendar shows weekly meetings with Mitchell going back 18 months. Private lunches, off the books." The pieces were fitting together, forming a picture that made Sarah's stomach turn. She thought of Tommy Chen, of how that case had seemed straightforward in comparison. A single kidnapper, a clear crime. This was different. A web of influence and intimidation, wrapped in respectability and protected by power. "Amanda," Sarah said carefully, "what happens during these private meetings with Mr. Mitchell?" The girl's breath hitched. Max responded instantly, pressing closer, offering comfort. Sarah watched the interaction, remembering how Max had known, had sensed the truth that first day in the auditorium. "He takes pictures sometimes," Amanda whispered. "Says they're for a special project. And there are other kids too, but we're not supposed to talk about it." Sarah caught Miss Chen's eye, saw the same controlled fury she felt herself. "You're being very brave," she told Amanda. "Max knows that. It's why he came to you that day." A ghost of a smile touched Amanda's lips. "He knew I was scared." "He always knows," Sarah said softly, remembering Tommy Chen's tears, Max's unwavering focus that day. "It's his special gift." Her phone buzzed again. Rivera had sent a photo, security footage showing Judge Harrison entering Cedar Grove Elementary through a side door, long after school hours. The timestamp was from just 2 days ago. Sarah thought of the USB drive from Mitchell's office, still unopened. Whatever was on it, she suspected it would connect directly to these after-hours visits. The question was whether they could gather enough evidence before Harrison realized how much they knew. "Amanda," Sarah said, "would you recognize any of the other children who had these special meetings?" The girl nodded slowly. "Jenny Martinez. She transferred last month. And Carlos Ruiz. But he left before Christmas. Transfer students." The gaps in the records Sarah had found. Each piece added to the horrible picture, but they needed more. Needed something concrete enough that not even a corrupt judge could bury it. Max's ears suddenly pricked forward, his body tensing slightly. A moment later, Sarah heard footsteps in the hallway. Multiple sets, moving quickly. "Miss Chen, stay with Amanda," she said, rising. Max was already at the door, reading her intent as clearly as if she'd spoken it. Sarah opened the door to find Mitchell's lawyer and 2 school board officials in the hallway. The lawyer's practiced smile didn't reach his eyes. "Officer Collins," he said smoothly, "I'm afraid this interview needs to end. We have serious concerns about questioning a minor without proper authorization." Sarah met his gaze steadily, feeling Max's solid presence beside her. She thought of Tommy Chen, of Amanda Torres, of all the children who needed someone to stand between them and the monsters wearing respectable masks. "Funny thing about proper authorization," she said. "I've got a K-9 indication of criminal activity, a witness statement, and evidence of a conspiracy involving a sitting judge. So unless you've got a court order signed by someone who isn't James Harrison, this interview continues." The lawyer's smile slipped just for a moment. But Sarah saw something else in his eyes: uncertainty. He hadn't expected them to know about Harrison's involvement, which meant they were finally one step ahead. Behind her, she heard Amanda's quiet voice resume her statement, with Max's reassuring presence still at her side. They'd opened the door to this darkness together, Sarah thought. Now they would bring it all into the light, no matter who tried to stop them. The USB drive glowed an accusatory blue in Sarah's laptop port. She'd been staring at the encryption prompt for 10 minutes, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Behind her, Max paced the small confines of her home office, his nails clicking against hardwood floors. "What's the password, you son of a bitch?" she muttered, trying another combination based on Mitchell's personnel file. Access denied. Again. Her phone lit up with a text from Rivera. "Harrison just called emergency school board meeting. Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Topic: Security Protocol Review." Sarah's jaw tightened. They were moving faster than expected. The school board meeting would give Harrison and Mitchell legal cover to destroy evidence. Everything would be logged as routine security updates and system maintenance. Max suddenly froze, his ears forward. A second later, Sarah heard it too. The crunch of leaves outside her kitchen window. She killed the desk lamp, plunging the room into darkness, broken only by the laptop's glow. The Belgian Malinois moved silently to the door, his posture alert but not aggressive. Sarah drew her service weapon, years of training taking over. The sound came again, closer now. The kitchen window exploded inward. Max launched himself toward the noise as Sarah flipped the desk, sheltering the laptop. Glass crunched under boots, at least 2 intruders. A flash of metal in the darkness. "Police! Drop your weapon!" Sarah commanded, but the shadow was already retreating. Max's pursuit was cut short by Sarah's sharp whistle. She couldn't risk him chasing armed suspects alone in the dark. The entire encounter had lasted less than 30 seconds. Sarah swept the house with Max, then called it in. While waiting for backup, she noticed something on her kitchen floor. A burner phone, dropped during the hasty retreat. Rivera arrived with the response team, his face grim. "You okay?" Sarah nodded, watching the crime scene text dust for prints. "They weren't here to kill me. This was a warning." She held up the phone. "And they left us a gift." The phone's call history was sparse, but the last number dialed connected to a prepaid cell registered to Jenny Martinez's mother. The same Jenny that Amanda had named as another victim. "Got a current address?" Sarah asked. Rivera's expression darkened. "Family moved last month. No forwarding address." "Mitchell's records showed a transfer to River Heights Elementary," Sarah said, pulling up the file on her laptop. "But I bet if we check, the school never received her paperwork," Rivera finished. "Jesus, how many kids have they disappeared?" Max whined softly, pawing at Sarah's laptop bag. She'd almost forgotten. The USB drive was still connected. The break-in had interrupted her attempts to crack it. A thought struck her. She pulled up Mitchell's personnel file again, scrolling to the emergency contacts. His mother's maiden name combined with the encryption cracked. "Oh, God," Sarah whispered, staring at the folders populating her screen. Hundreds of files, meticulously organized by date and initials, the same initials from Mitchell's notebook. Rivera leaned in, his face hardening as he scanned the content. This goes back 6 years, multiple schools. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling major crimes. We need a task force. Sarah barely heard him. She was focused on a folder labeled JM Final. The timestamps matched Jenny Martinez's last known day at Cedar Grove. Max's growl snapped her attention back to the present. Her partner was staring at the kitchen window, every muscle tense. They'll be back, Sarah said quietly, once they realize what they dropped. Rivera nodded to the patrol units outside. You'll have 24-hour protection. We can move you to a safe house. No. Sarah was already packing her laptop. They're counting on us bunkering down, playing defense. She checked her weapon, then reached for Max's tactical vest. We need to move first. Collins. Rivera's warning tone was cut short by his phone buzzing. His expression told Sarah everything before he spoke. Harrison just signed emergency warrants. They're seizing all of Cedar Grove's computers for security auditing. Team arrives at 6 a.m. Sarah checked her watch. 11:47 p.m. Just over 6 hours before Harrison's people could start destroying evidence. I need everything you have on Jenny Martinez, she told Rivera. School records, family details, known associates, and get me access to River Heights Elementary's security system. You think that's where they really sent her? Sarah clipped Max's leash to his vest. No, I think that's what they wanted us to believe. But Mitchell's the type to keep trophies. Those pictures he took of the kids, he'd want them close. Understanding dawned in Rivera's eyes. The storage facility listed in his divorce papers, private unit, climate-controlled, perfect place to keep sensitive materials. Sarah grabbed her go-bag, and I bet Jenny Martinez isn't the only one there. Max was already at the door, body vibrating with controlled energy. He could read the shift in Sarah's posture, sense the switch from defense to offense. Collins! Rivera called as she reached the door. Harrison has judges in his pocket. Whatever you find won't matter without chain of custody. Sarah finished. I know. She patted the laptop bag. But we've got something better. We've got proof of where to look and... Max's soft bark completed her thought. Rivera nodded grimly. And a K9 indication gives you probable cause that even Harrison can't fight. Go. I'll have backup on standby. Sarah led Max to their unmarked SUV, her mind already mapping out approaches to the storage facility. 6 hours to find Jenny Martinez. 6 hours to break open a conspiracy that reached into Atlanta's judicial system. Max settled into his compartment, eyes fixed on her with complete trust. Sarah thought of Amanda Torres, of the pictures hidden in Mitchell's files, of all the children who disappeared into carefully sanitized transfer records. Ready, partner? She asked softly. Max's eager whine was all the answer she needed. They had 6 hours to tear down a wall of corruption that had taken years to build, but they'd done the impossible before. Sarah started the engine, her resolution hardening into steel. Sometimes justice needed more than legal papers and proper procedures. Sometimes it needed a cop who wouldn't back down and a dog who could smell the truth. They were about to give Harrison and his cronies a lesson in both. The storage facility loomed against the pre-dawn sky, a maze of identical metal buildings bathed in sodium vapor lighting. Sarah killed the SUV's engine 2 blocks away, checking her watch. 4:23 a.m. Less than 2 hours before Harrison's team would descend on Cedar Grove Elementary. Max's breathing was steady in the compartment behind her, his focus absolute. They'd done countless raids together, but something felt different about this one. The weight of unseen eyes, the thickness in the air before a storm breaks. Her earpiece crackled. Team 1 in position, Rivera's voice confirmed. No movement at the target. Sarah double-checked her vest, then opened Max's compartment. Her partner stepped out silently, tactical gear making him almost invisible in the darkness. His ears were forward, nose already testing the air. Building C, Unit 217, Sarah whispered, though Max already knew their target. They'd reviewed the approach a dozen times. One shot at this, they had to get it right. They moved through the shadows between buildings, Max slightly ahead, leading them on the least exposed route. Sarah spotted the surveillance cameras Mitchell had installed, high-end with motion detection, but they'd planned for that. Right on cue, the facility's power flickered. Rivera's team had timed the grid interruption perfectly. 3 seconds of darkness, just enough to cross the final exposed stretch. The lock on Unit 217 was serious hardware, biometric, with a backup keypad. But Mitchell's arrogance had worked in their favor. The USB drive hadn't just contained photos, it had contained everything, including door codes. Sarah entered the sequence. The lock clicked. Max's posture changed the instant the door opened, alert but not aggressive. Sarah's pulse quickened. That was his signature tell. Survivors inside. The unit was larger than standard storage spaces, climate-controlled and carefully organized. Filing cabinets lined one wall. A sophisticated computer setup occupied another. But it was the back room that drew Max's attention. Sarah's flashlight beam revealed 2 small cots. And on them, "Jenny," she called softly. "Jenny Martinez?" The girl on the right cot stirred. Next to her, a younger child, a boy Sarah recognized from the missing files, blinked in the sudden light. "I'm Officer Collins," Sarah said, keeping her voice calm. "This is Max. We're here to take you home." Jenny Martinez sat up slowly, disbelief warring with hope on her face. "Mr. Mitchell said no one was looking for us, that our parents didn't want—" "He lied," Sarah cut in firmly. "Your parents never stopped looking. We never stopped looking." Max padded forward, offering gentle reassurance to the children, while Sarah radioed their location. But before she could complete the transmission, floodlights blazed through the windows. "Collins!" Mitchell's voice carried through a megaphone. "Come out slowly. We can resolve this professionally." Sarah's earpiece crackled with static. Signal jammer. They'd walked into a trap. "Jenny," she whispered, "is there another way out of here?" The girl nodded. "Air vent in the bathroom. It connects to the next unit, but Mr. Mitchell checks it's locked every night." Sarah's light found the vent. Max was already moving, nose working the seam where metal met wall. His tail gave a single, crucial wag. The scent was fresh. Mitchell had been here recently. "Collins!" The megaphone again. "Don't make this messier than it needs to be. Judge Harrison is willing to be reasonable." Sarah counted shadows through the frosted windows. At least 4 men. Heavy equipment being moved into position. "Jenny, take care of—" Sarah glanced at the boy. "Tommy," Jenny supplied. "Tommy Rodriguez." Sarah's gut clenched at the name. Another Tommy, another child who needed them. "Stay behind Max. Do exactly what he tells you." Max's ears pricked at her tone. He knew what was coming. Sarah drew her weapon and moved to the main door. "Mitchell," she called. "Funny time for a security check." "Mud. Just ensuring compliance with court orders." Mitchell's voice oozed false concern. "We have a warrant to secure all evidence related to Cedar Grove Elementary." "Evidence like Jenny Martinez?" Sarah's voice hardened. "Like Tommy Rodriguez? Or the hundreds of files on that USB drive showing exactly what you've been doing to these kids?" A new voice joined the conversation. Smooth, cultured, dangerous. Judge Harrison. "Officer Collins, you're interfering with a judicial investigation. Any evidence you've gathered is inadmissible. Stand down now and we can discuss alternatives." Sarah smiled grimly. "Alternatives like the ones you offered Amanda Torres. Tell me, Your Honor, does the Georgia Bar Association know about your extracurricular activities?" The pretense of civility vanished. "Breach the door," Harrison ordered. Sarah waited until she heard the battering ram engage, then moved. "Max, escort!" Her partner understood instantly. As the door burst inward, Sarah fired 2 precise shots, not at the entry team, but at the facility's main power junction box. Sparks flew. Emergency lights kicked in, casting everything in dim red. Max was already leading the children through the bathroom vent, his body blocking them from any potential danger. Sarah provided cover, keeping Harrison's team focused on the main entrance. "Officer Collins." Mitchell's voice held real panic now. "This is your final warning." Sarah reached into her vest and pulled out her phone. The live stream had been running since they entered the unit. Thousands of viewers watching as she called back, "Warning received and recorded. along with your confession about Amanda Torres. Wave to your audience, Mr. Mitchell. I'm sure the DA will be interested in their feedback. Chaos erupted outside. New voices, different equipment. Rivera's team, right on schedule. Atlanta PD, everyone on the ground. Sarah heard the thud of Harrison and Mitchell being taken down, the clatter of weapons being secured. Through her earpiece, now functioning again, Rivera's voice. Package secure, children safe. We got them, Collins. She sagged against the wall, adrenaline draining. Through the vent came Max's soft bark, his all-clear signal. The children were safe. Sarah looked around the storage unit, at the files and computers that documented years of exploitation. Evidence that would put Mitchell, Harrison, and their entire network away for life. Her phone buzzed. A message from Rivera. Amanda Torres ID'd 3 more locations. Task force moving now. Max appeared in the doorway. Children safely delivered to the medical team outside. His tail wagged once, asking a familiar question. What next? Sarah holstered her weapon, reaching down to scratch his ears. Good boy, she whispered. The best boy. He leaned against her leg, offering support as the full impact of what they'd uncovered began to settle. They'd broken open something huge tonight, something that would ripple through Atlanta's power structure for years to come. But for now, for this moment, Sarah focused on the simpler truth. 2 more children were going home. 2 more families would be whole again. Max's ears suddenly pricked forward. Through the open door, they heard Jenny Martinez's voice talking to the paramedics. The dog knew we were scared. He made us feel safe. Sarah smiled, remembering another child, another case, another moment when Max's instincts had cut through darkness to find the truth. That's your superpower, isn't it, buddy? She murmured, finding the ones who need us most. Max's tail wagged again, more emphatically this time. Outside, the first light of dawn was breaking over Atlanta. A new day, Sarah thought, and thanks to a Belgian Malinois who could smell the truth, it would be a brighter one for a lot of children who'd lost hope of seeing another sunrise. They had more work to do, more darkness to fight. But for now, this victory was enough. Sarah scratched Max's ears one more time, then squared her shoulders. Come on, partner, she said. Let's go make sure these kids get home. 3 months after the raid on Storage Unit 217, Sarah stood in the back of the Atlanta Police Department's main conference room, watching Judge Harrison's sentencing broadcast on the wall-mounted screens. Max sat at perfect attention beside her, his eyes fixed on the proceedings. James Harrison, the federal judge intoned, this court sentences you to 40 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. A soft exhale rippled through the assembled officers. Harrison's conviction had taken down 3 more judges, 2 district attorneys, and a web of enablers spanning 4 counties. The story had made national headlines. K-9 unit uncovers decades of systematic abuse. But Sarah's attention was on a different screen, the closed-circuit feed from the Victim Support Center, where Amanda Torres and the other survivors were watching. Amanda sat between her parents, one hand buried in the fur of her new therapy dog. The golden retriever puppy had been Jenny Martinez's idea. Everyone needs a dog who knows when they're scared. The thought of Jenny brought a smile to Sarah's face. Yesterday, the teenager had finally returned to school. A different school, with new security protocols implemented in the wake of the Harrison scandal. Jenny's first act had been to start a peer support group for abuse survivors. Because sometimes kids need to hear it from other kids, she'd explained. That it wasn't their fault, that they can be strong again. Max's ears twitched as Thomas Mitchell appeared on screen for his sentencing. The former vice principal had traded his tailored suits for prison orange, his polished demeanor cracked beyond repair. Thomas Mitchell, the judge began, given the severity of your crimes, your position of authority, and your lack of remorse, this court sentences you to life in prison without possibility of parole. Sarah felt Max lean against her leg, his way of offering support when memories threatened to overwhelm her. The investigation had revealed the full scope of Mitchell's activities, hundreds of victims across multiple schools, meticulous records of abuse spanning more than a decade. Officer Collins, Sarah turned to find Tommy Rodriguez, the second Tommy her partner had helped save, standing in the conference room doorway. The boy had grown in the past 3 months, his shoulders straighter, his eyes clearer. "Hey, Tommy," she said softly. "How are you doing?" "Better." He knelt to greet Max, who gently nuzzled his hand. "Mom wanted me to give you this, for the ceremony tomorrow." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a carefully drawn picture. Max, in his tactical vest, standing guard over a group of children. The caption read, "Our Guardian." Sarah swallowed hard. Tomorrow's ceremony would officially recognize their role in breaking the case. But this was the recognition that mattered most. "Thank you," she managed. "Max will love having this in our office." Tommy smiled, then grew serious. "Jenny told me about the new law they're proposing, the one named after the K-9 Protection Act," Sarah confirmed. "Mandatory K-9 units in schools, specifically trained to recognize signs of abuse. Your testimony helped convince the state legislature to fast-track it." The boy's eyes shone. "So there'll be more dogs like Max, making sure other kids are safe?" "That's the plan." Sarah watched Max demonstrate his gentle shake command for Tommy. "And the training program will be headquartered right here in Atlanta." A commotion at the front of the room drew their attention. The screens showed Mitchell being led away, his empire of secrets destroyed, his power stripped away by the truth a Belgian Malinois had first sensed in a school auditorium. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Rivera. "Cemetery Lane Elementary raid successful. 3 more arrests. Task force says to thank Max for the intel." They'd discovered Mitchell's records included coded references to other operations across the state. Max had helped identify locations by visiting each site, his reactions giving investigators probable cause for deeper searches. One by one, the dominoes were falling. "Officer Collins?" Tommy's voice pulled her back to the present. Do you think we'll ever forget what happened to us?" Sarah knelt beside him, choosing her words carefully. "I think those memories will always be part of your story. But they don't have to be the whole story." She gestured to the picture he'd drawn. "Look at what you're already doing, helping other kids understand they're not alone. That's pretty powerful." Max punctuated her words with a gentle headbutt against Tommy's shoulder, drawing a genuine laugh from the boy. "He always knows," Tommy said wonderingly, "when we need him." "It's his gift," Sarah agreed. "And now it's helping change things, making sure other kids have protection we didn't know they needed." The conference room was emptying as the sentencing coverage ended. Through the windows, Sarah could see reporters gathering outside, hungry for follow-up stories about the case that had shaken Georgia's legal system to its core. But her attention was on Tommy, watching him with Max, the boy who had emerged from darkness to help light the way for others. Like Jenny with her support group, like Amanda with her advocacy work. Sarah's desk calendar showed tomorrow's ceremony, where she and Max would receive commendations for their work. But the real ceremony had already happened, in moments like this. A survivor finding his strength again, a therapy dog bringing comfort, a law being passed to protect future generations. "Ready for tomorrow, partner?" she asked Max. His tail wagged once, decisively. After all, it was just another day of doing what he did best, following his instincts, protecting the vulnerable, showing humans how to be better guardians of their own. Tommy gave Max a final pat before heading out to join his waiting mother. At the door, he turned back. "Officer Collins, thanks for believing us, for not giving up." Sarah watched him leave, then knelt beside her partner. "Hear that, buddy? That's all you. You showed us the way." Max's brown eyes met hers, filled with the same steady purpose that had guided them through the darkness of this case. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new mysteries to solve. But for now, in this moment, justice had been served. Sarah scratched Max's ears, remembering that first day in the school auditorium when he'd broken protocol to stand beside a frightened child. "Best partner ever," she whispered. Max's tail wagged again, and Sarah smiled. Sometimes the deepest truths needed no words at all, just the unwavering bond between a cop and her canine, standing guard together against the darkness, making sure no child ever had to face it alone.